Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to go over the January 2022 update for DBD. This is going to be hitting the PTB very soon, and it's got a couple of changes. I very briefly skimmed it, and it's I don't know, it's okay. Like after that last mid chapter patch we had, like it raised the bar so much for what a mid chapter patch should be that I feel like it was destined to be disappointing for this one. But let's go over it because there is a couple of interesting things. But overall, I felt like it was kind of eh. But let's start with the first part. Basically, all this means right here is, sometimes when you go to update DBD and you have to just re-download 50 gigs of stuff, that can be very obnoxious if you don't have a fast internet connection. Actually, the patching takes longer than downloading it often, so they're just making that process a bit faster, which is nice, welcome. Doesn't really affect the gameplay at all, but it's still a nice welcome change, so no real complaints there. Next, they're talking about SBMM and how they've gotten some data from it, I guess. So I guess we'll just go over the main things that they're actually looking at. So probably the best change that they made is the default rating that you have as a player. It used to be 1100. Now it's probably going to be, I'm just guessing, it's going to be closer to like 800 or something like that. So that's probably what they changed the value to, because they were saying that people were installing the game on Epic and getting people with, 4,000 hours in the game that might have had a couple of a run of bad games, and their MMR was just in range to go against brand new players. So that must indicate that the windows are much wider than they should be, but regardless, I still think that's a good thing. It's way too quick to go from nothing to the highest soft cap for MMR. You can do that in a day, less than a day. So I'm actually liking that they did that. So that's good. Whether that's going to make any big changes once you're, an established player, no, I don't think it's going to make any big changes, but it'll help new players a lot, it is important. You need to have a good first impression for a game, so that is good. The other somewhat notable thing is the backfill improvements. Basically, whenever someone leaves a lobby, rather than trying to get a more accurate replacement, it just tries to quickly get a replacement. So if you got 4 people at a lobby, one guy leaves and another guy joins, it's possible that guy is going to be way better or way worse than you. Again, all this assumes the MMR dictates skill correctly, which it doesn't. So this is all meaningless conversation, but I'm just going off of what they're saying. So in theory, that would be good for a more accurate match. But I typically find once people join my lobby, it's very rare that more than one person will leave. It's usually once they're in, they're in. So it's not going to be the majority of your games, but I mean, it's not a bad thing. So it's okay, I guess. Disconnection handling. Currently, the SBMM system doesn't handle disconnects as well as it should. We're looking to make adjustments to handle them better and make sure disconnects are treated fairly when altering someone's rating. This is basically no information whatsoever. It doesn't even indicate they're doing anything yet, so I'll talk about that if they ever actually do it. There's the whole extended break thing, because your rating doesn't change after, you could be rusty in a while, so I think they're making a decay thing possible. But again, this is not stuff that's going to be on the PTB. This is just stuff they're talking about that they might do. This is a lot of, well, we're probably going to do this. And I'm very cynical with behavior when they talk about that stuff, because they always talk about a lot of stuff they're going to do and they just never do it. So I will talk about these things in more detail once they are actually confirmed to be in the game. Right now, it just seems like they're just speculating on what they're possibly going to do, which is nice, but also pointless to even talk about. This one is a bit more interesting. So the game will detect which server you have the best connection to and match you with other players who are close to that server. This works well enough, but if you're right between 2 servers, you'll only be matched with one set of players. If players have a good connections to more than one server, we'd like to open up matchmaking and allow them to find matches with either set of players. So basically, this is actually what I assumed was happening before, and I bet that's actually what they were testing before. Remember, a couple months ago, I noticed I was matching with people from different regions. It wasn't super laggy. Like, I would match with Europe, and instead of 60, 70 ping, I'd have 100 or 110 ping. And I noticed that, and a lot of other people noticed that too. And I felt like they were testing something, and I'm guessing that's exactly what this is. So I think it's going to make matchmaking a bit more on the nose, like with who you should be matching with, because the regions will be a bit wider. So there'll be more players to check. Sorry, just woke up. So I think that is a good idea if they're still working on it. I think we've actually seen proof of them actually doing that, so that's cool. But yeah. Now, let's go on to this part. This is probably the most interesting part about all this, but again, it's not something that they've even done yet. It's just they're just talking about it. So let's just go over it. So thanks to this is a great sentence. Thanks to skill-based matchmaking ratings, we're able to see the impact playing with a pre-made group has had on the outcome of a match at various skill levels. Okay. Even the most fervent survivor-sided people on the planet, like no shit, obviously Survive with Friends is going to make you on average win more. The argument is that, the people that are kind of like defending it is that it doesn't suddenly make all the players good. What it does is give them free perks and stuff, but it doesn't just make them better players or anything like that. So this is a very big no shit moment, because of course, if you have friends with communication, you're going to be playing better than a similar group of people with a similar skill level that do not have communication. You didn't need 5 years to confirm our suspicions. As skill goes up, so does the gap in survival rates between solo survivors and pre-made groups, which makes sense because if you just have a bunch of new players dicking around, it's not going to do anything. They don't even know how to use the information that they can give each other. But if you have players that are very good playing with friends, then they can utilize that information in a more useful way. But again, this stuff is all really obvious. You didn't need a year of gathering data to tell you this. But at least they can see this now, I guess. That's good. So one of the biggest issues in balancing this game was balancing the difference between solo queue and survive with friends. We've always talked about it. In like a bunch of my videos, I've talked about it like it goes like solo queue, then killer, then survive with friends. They need to bring the top and the bottom closer to killer. And it seems they finally realized that now they should be doing that. This isn't great. The difference between solo and survivor and groups makes it difficult to find a perfect balance. Yes. So if we balance killers around pre-made groups, solo survivors get left behind, of course. And then obviously the inverse is true as well. With that in mind, we're working on some measures to bring the bridge between solo survivors and pre-made groups, which will allow us to better balance killers as a result. Again, this is a admirable goal. This is what they should have been doing for years and years. So it's good that they're aware of this at least now. So now they're basically talking about a feature which a lot of us have suggested, various versions of it via text or icons or something for solo queue players to be able to communicate very subtly to their teammates what they're doing. So for example, with this, like you're touching a gen, your icon changes to a little generator or something like that. You're on the hook. Well, obviously you're on the hook there. You're healing, you have a little medkit icon. Just little simple things like that, right? So they want to make it so solo queue has more information, but obviously not nearly as much as Survive with Friends, who can be way more precise. But it'll be kind of something. And I think that is a very good idea. Now, on the one hand, you might go, okay, that means they're buffing survivors, which don't really need a buff. But you can't look at it like that. You have to look at it as a long-term thing. Once they do this, then they can start thinking about buffing killers again, because now the game is a lot closer from the top and the bottom. And that makes balancing everything a lot easier. So ideally, they would release this and a kind of a sweeping buff to killer as well at the same time. But it doesn't appear they're doing that. So people are going to be probably pissed for the 6 months it takes for whatever the counter is going to be on the killer side. But this is an important step that does need to happen. I just wish it happened with something with killer as well. So just to make people not really pissed off. The problem with all of this is it doesn't exist yet. So we have a mid-chapter patch where they're talking about a lot of interesting things, but there's nothing in it. And I don't even think it's going to be there when the Ringu killer comes out. So this is all well and good, and it seems like they know what they should be doing, but the problem has always been that they don't ever actually do it. Like the whole early game, collapse thing that they were talking about was such a great solution to the early game pressure that killers just completely lack, especially on big maps, and it would have kind of bridged the gap between small maps and big maps. And it was a great idea, and they said they were doing it, and then they just didn't do it. So forgive me for being cynical, but when they talk about, here's an idea we have for something, I don't care. I want to see it in the game, and then I will give it a real discussion and, compliment them and all that stuff. Again, it's good that they're aware, but they have a history of saying a lot of things and just never doing them. So none of this is final and none of this is confirmed. So again, we can commend them for having the idea, but this PTB seems like it's going to be very light on actual content, because that would be a very interesting thing to test, but doesn't seem like we're going to be able to see that for probably quite some time. Next, there's a new betas tab, which means basically very minor features can be tested in the live servers now, which is cool. Obviously, they can't be very glaring things. You can't have a beta for a perk be tested in the same, lobby as someone that doesn't have the betas active, because then there'll be conflicting perk values. No, this is just basically small quality of life things. So basically, the main thing they're trying to work on now is the wiggle update. So you're going to do skill checks for wiggling instead of just smashing A and D. That's cool. I'm okay with that. I think it's a pretty neutral change. I don't mind mashing A and D, but I also don't mind hitting skill checks too. It seems to follow up with their previous method of not having to mash spacebar on the hook. So I'm okay with that. It's a pretty neutral change for me. I think some people, I guess, with wrist injuries or things like that will probably see this as good, and that's great. So I can't really see a downside to this at all. As long as it doesn't make you wiggle faster or some gimmick like that. Like if there's a great skill check for it and it's going to alter wiggle timings, that I think would be a problem. But I have a feeling it's not going to be like that. They're just going to be like the big wide ones you get on the hook. So I think that is fine. No real issues with that. This is also a cool quality of life feature as well, toggle interactions. So basically, there used to be this thing where you could work on a generator, press escape, bring up the menu, close the menu, and you'd be working on the gens with your hands free, so you could stretch or do whatever. Basically, they're just making that an actual feature now, which is cool. So you can work on gens hands free, and then I'm assuming as soon as you press WASD or you run away with the controller or anything like that, it will cancel it. I can think of a few examples where this might screw you over, but it's not going to be the big of a deal, and it's going to be an option. So these are things you'll be able to enable in that whole beta tab, and that's cool. Little minor quality of life things. The thing is, I'm looking for more gameplay changes, and maybe it's because I've been playing the game so long, and maybe because I'm excited for Elden Ring, and I'm just kind of bored of the same formula over and over again. But I just keep waiting for a big gameplay change. Like the last big gameplay change, I think, was the endgame collapse years ago, and that was awesome. Like we were all super excited for that. It was an entirely new mechanic you had to think about, and that was really exciting. But we just don't really have much. These quality of life things are really nice and all, but let's move on to the second day. First off is the whole leather face mask thing. I understand the whole reason behind removing it. I definitely get it. I think a better way to address people being assholes with this stuff, a lot simpler, instead of taking away everybody's cosmetics that they grinded for, and 99.9% of people are not being racist assholes with it. I think it would have been better to just make the masks client-sided or something, so if you're a survivor, you always just see the default leather face, or if they have a different cosmetic, that's fine. I think that would have been a much less controversial change. They probably wouldn't have even had to announce it, and no one would have ever noticed. So I think just removing all of the masks that people grinded for, while it will certainly help the obvious issue, I think it was unnecessary, and there was probably a better solution for that didn't rob everybody else that wasn't a dick about it, but whatever. I'm mostly just interested in the balancing thing. So the grade rewards revisited. So they're just going to give more blood points for getting red ranks, I guess. They didn't say exactly what the rewards would be. They just said increasing the grade rewards. So I assume that just means more blood points. That's cool, I guess. Anything to help with the grind. Add-on updates. This is the stuff where I get more excited, because these are actual gameplay changes. Add-on updates and killer updates. This is what I really like to see. And a lot of these are basically nothing. So Adrenaline Vial reduced the turn rate penalty to 55%. I mean, this is still going to be not a good add-on. I don't understand how Blights, like, they've nerfed so many other significantly weaker add-ons than Blight. Like, I just don't get how Alchemist Ring and Compound 33 and Blighted Crow, like, he has so many busted add-ons that just don't get removed or nerfed or anything, and then they just nerf like they nerf Twins add-ons. I don't know. Their priorities are very out of whack. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Alchemist Ring and stuff like that is still in the game, but whatever. Lights are probably pretty happy. These are all pretty nothing changes, like 2 to 4%. Like you don't even really notice these changes. You're not going to notice that change. Iridescent Flesh, max tantrum duration. Wait, Iridescent Flesh. I thought that was the one that made it so when you hit people, you continued your tantrum. Was that not the one I'm thinking of? Maybe I'm being stupid. Hold on. Let me check my fact checkers over here. Iridescent Flesh replenishes all tokens. Huh. I didn't know this actually affected your tantrum. I had no idea. Probably because it's so hard to actually tantrum. Huh. Okay. Well, this is basically a nothing, because I don't think I've ever tantrumed with this add-on my entire life, so okay, whatever. Long guide bar, these are nothing. This doesn't do anything. Clown got a slight buff to this invigoration add-on, but this also buffs Survivor too, doesn't it? I believe it affects both. So it's like a neutral, it's whatever. Cooldown by 40%, it's okay. Flask of Bleach was nerfed, which is one of his best add-ons, but it's fucking Clown, so who cares? Now, Pinky Finger being nerfed, I kind of support, because of the gameplay it incentivized. It was just throw 3 of your bottles until you can get them close enough to just hit them in the face, and then you M1 them. It was just a stupid gameplay. But the thing is, when you nerf his best add-ons like that, you have to buff his base kit to compensate. You don't just shit on an already very weak killer and then just leave. You have to give him something else to compensate. So I think nerfing this is great, but you have to give him something else to compensate for it. It's the same thing with Deathslinger. Deathslinger needed that quick scoping bullshit removed, but he didn't give him anything else. They just said, well, there you go. And then they just left. So I think nerfing already weak killers is not a good idea. Addressing problem add-ons is a good idea, but you have to give the weak killers something else to compensate for it. So this is kind of just hilarious in my opinion. Clown is now weaker somehow, despite being already very shit. Mana's Letter got slightly buffed. That's cool, I guess. Last Will slightly buffed as well. That's cool. Twins, I don't know much about Twins, but I've heard like from Pixel that this is overall a Twins nerf, so I'm just going to trust him and say lol. Nemesis, this meme add-on that I don't think anyone ever got a single exposed down in their entire lives, might actually be viable now. It's an iridescent add-on, so it might as well do something, right? Basically, what this means is whenever you use a vaccine, you're exposed for a minute now. So you might actually get some value out of that. If you're an iridescent, I still think it's kind of whack, but whatever. Shattered Stars badge got slightly buffed as well, which is cool. His best add-on, Marvin's Blood, was nerfed, which sucks. And Mikhail's Eye was also nerfed. This was the zombie movement speed one. So 2 buffs, 2 nerfs, but they nerfed his best add-on. So I'm going to say overall, that's just a nerf for Nemesis. Huntress, Wooden Fox, I mean, that's kind of a meme add-on. Undetectable on a Lullaby Killer is a little redundant. Iridescent Family Crest, this was probably the worst iridescent add-on the entire game. This might be usable now. You use this add-on by missing with your power while you have your rage up. So unless you're just going around just whacking the air, you're still probably not going to get much value from this. If you hit somebody, this doesn't work. The only time I can see you getting value is if you're chasing somebody and you just genuinely miss them and you might find out about somebody else instead. Not really worthy of an iridescent slot, so not super exciting there. Perk updates, though. This is where a lot of excitement is, too, because a lot of these change up the meta and things like that. So Boil Over, this one is probably the only one where I'm... Actually, there's 2. There's another one I want to talk about that's a little interesting. Boil Over, this is somewhat interesting now. They buffed the effects of the wiggling, which is cool. They buffed the blocking aura reading of the hooks, which is cool. But now they have this new feature, which I don't think was necessary. I think just buffing those 2 other aspects would have been fine. But now they're making it so if you drop from a height, you instantly basically get 4 seconds of wiggle time. It takes 16 seconds to wiggle in total. Now you get 4 seconds. So my question is, does this have an internal cooldown, and what is the height that determines a drop? Like if you drop off a hill hook, are you going to get that bonus? Or does it have to be higher? Is there an internal cooldown? If I'm on Mother's Dwelling and I'm on the 2nd floor, I down someone, and then I drop down into the main room, and then I drop down into the basement, are they going to be 8 seconds into a wiggle now for free? These are the kinds of questions I have. These are the kinds of things we need to test, because that does present an abusable possibility. And I don't like that. Even Dead Dog Saloon, you'll have the top floor right there. There would be a drop down, and then you would have the drop down into the basement as well, which could be another drop down. Now, obviously, the killer can take the stairs and go all the way around, but that takes them equally as long going out of their way to do that. So I think, first of all, this perk will not be meta, by the way. This is not going to overtake any of the meta perks. I'm not concerned about that at all. I'm just concerned about people finding ways to abuse this, because there might be some bullshit that you can do. It'll never really result in the killer losing the match. It'll just be really annoying. But we need to know the variables. I need to know what's the height, what's the cooldown, internal cooldown, things like that. So no point in talking more about it. I like these 2 initial buffs to a pretty weak perk. This has the potential to be abused, but we need to see exactly how that's going to work before I comment further. Distortion, just got a simple buff. Cool. I'm okay with that. Remember Me got a pretty nice buff. It now does not depend on just a basic hit. Now it's whenever the obsession loses a health state from any method whatsoever. So that's cool. Slight buff to Remember Me. It's still severely outclassed by No Way Out, so I can't imagine people will use this instead of No Way Out. Not to say you can't run both, but it becomes a bit redundant then, and I think you are better off having other perks. Wake Up has a pretty significant buff. I kind of like that. Wake Up, I think, is a pretty weak perk, and yeah, I think that's a pretty good buff. Will it see meta use? Still probably not, but hey, it's a buff to a weak perk, so no complaints there. Gearhead. I still don't even know what Gearhead does. That's how bad Gearhead is. The conditions for Gearhead were too strict for the payoff, so we're giving a small rework. Anytime a survivor loses a health state, Gearhead activates. Next time a survivor... Oh, that's right. Next time a survivor hits a great skill check while repairing, the aura will be revealed for 10 seconds. Gearhead then deactivates. These changes to make the perk more appealing on killers that rely more heavily on specials, but just making it apply to basic attacks as well. Well, no, it's just they're doing the same thing for Remember Me, where it's just a health state change rather. Okay, no one's ever going to use this still. Power struggle. I saw people freaking about this buff. This is whatever. It's now on 50% wiggle progression that you can drop a pallet. I don't think it's going to matter, like, at all. Typically, killers are not just going to be walking through pallets because it's a dangerous thing to do regardless of anything, because there could be a survivor on the other side. You typically want to avoid pallets while you're carrying someone no matter what, which means really the only way you're going to be able to reliably activate this is the whole flip-flop unbreakable power struggle combo, which already is countered by the killer just picking you up immediately, and buffing the percent doesn't change anything unless the killer slugs you for like that 2 additional seconds. Then I guess that will be, I don't know. It's still going to be a meme perk. I don't think it's going to see much value anymore. Just like people freaked out, Survivor Friends were going to abuse Power Struggle nonstop. It went away after a week. I don't see this buff even really making it see much use, but I'm okay with it. It's just, I don't think it's going to really change much. Buckle, who fucking cares? No one's going to use this. Coup de grace, still bad. It's just, even when it was 100% on the PTB, it was still not a good perk because of the system at which you get the tokens. You only get maximum of 5 swings, and that requires you to be losing the game, basically. There are a number of alternatives that could have made this perk better. One of the things you could have done is gone the separate route and made it increase your lunge speed by 100%. That would be good, because right now it increases the duration of your lunge, which means you don't actually go twice the distance. You just travel for twice the amount of time, but that means the survivor's also running for more time as well. If it was twice the speed, that will be pretty good and probably worth the 5 maximum uses that you have. That's one thing. Another possible solution is you make it so you only lose a stack when you benefit from the extended lunge. So if you do a regular lunge and hit the survivor, you don't lose a stack. But if you get a super lunge, then your stack gets used. There's a lot of things they can do to make this perk better. Or give you 2 stacks per hook or something like that, or per generator. It's just something. But as it stands right now, buffing this up to 80%, it's still going to be a bad perk. It's just not good enough. Furtive Chase. This is the one that reduces your terror radius in a chase. It used to go away when the obsession died. Now it doesn't. That's fine. Still not a good perk. No one's really going to use it. Dead Man Switch. This is probably the most significant change out of all of these. So now there's no limit. So now you can just basically every time you hook somebody, you get this scenario where if they get off the gen, it's blocked. That can be very good on a couple of killers. I'm thinking like Freddy with Class Photo, where he can put his blood on every generator. Everyone gets off a generator. Every gen gets blocked. That seems pretty significant. So this is probably the most notable perk change, and I actually will be very curious to see how this will be used on several different killers. So this is the one to look out for. I think this is the one that's going to see the most use. Pretty much every other change, I don't think we're going to see. You might see boil over on bully squads. That's about it. Other than that, these are not significant enough to see any changes, but this one is interesting. So overall, we have not much. Like, honestly, when I think about the PTBs, I always think about, like, testing, new killer powers or new maps or things like that, or new perks or, new killers themselves. No one's going to install this PTB. They're not going to like, oh my God, I can't wait to install PTB to see the 2% difference in carburetor tuning guide. Like, no one's going to do that. So, you might want to see people testing the boil over thing and Dead Man Switch, and then that's about it. So, to me, although they made not really many bad changes, in my opinion, it's just, I don't know. I guess this is more of a personal problem for me. It's just not that exciting. After the last mid-chapter patch where they changed a lot of stuff in significant ways, this one is just not that exciting. It's just, okay, some numbers got changed around, and you might see one new perk or two or something like that. And every other, like, significant game-changing thing that they're talking about, being the matchmaking rating changes, the icons for solo queue, things like that, none of that is actually in existence yet. So who cares? It's not, there's nothing actually amazing being changed yet. I think, the removing the whole mask thing is, fine, just to help people that are getting attacked for it, and that's great. But like, in terms of gameplay, I don't know. It really could just be because I'm cynical and burned out on the game. That really may be it. And if you guys are excited for this, I really hope I'm not rubbing off my cynicism on you. I really don't want to do that at all. But me personally, and I know a lot of people that have been playing this game for a long time, we're just looking for something exciting to happen. Just something exciting and new. And this is just a very much a couple numbers got changed. We'll see in a month and a half again. It's whatever. It's a patch. This patch exists. That's pretty much all I can say. All right, thanks for watching, guys.